Welcome to the live Q&A for Fried Berry, the few, the bold, the brave. Yes, this is the Canadian premiere of Fried Berry, and we're very happy to have with us Ryan Kruger, who wrote and directed the film, and James Williamson, who produced. Welcome.
Good morning, Fantasia. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with my video. For some reason, it's not coming on.
I can see you.
Oh, can you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's very
okay. There we go. Sorted.
Unsettling.
My bad.
Great. Well, welcome and congratulations on the film. This wild, insane, kind of transgressive thing that also kind of technically is a superhero movie. It's a very unusual kind of combination there.
You hit the nail on the head there, because we are campaigning really hard to get Fried Barry put into the MCU. So just post out there hashtag Barry in the MCU, and let's get Kevin Feige to see this. I think he'll love Barry.
Yeah, I think it'll appeal to the exact same demographic as Marvel.
Yeah, same audience, man. Same audience.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think. Me and James always said, like, Barry's almost like the superhero, and he's, Superman's got his suit, and Fried Barry's he's got that denim jacket and his denim jeans that he's always wears, and that's his cape,
Yeah, and I mean, some superheroes get possessed by aliens all the time, so it completely
listen, if
fits.
there's any superheroes like that say they don't take drugs, they're lying. Like, all superheroes take drugs, you just don't see it on the films. That's all.
Yeah, it's on the cutting room floor. I'd like to talk a little bit about the genesis of the idea, because it is quite wild. Because this feature started out as a short. So can you kind of talk us through the process of going from that short into a feature?
Yeah, so I mean, in 2017, I shot the 3-minute experimental short, also called Fried Barry, also starring Gary Green. And I never ever planned to do a feature film out of the short. It was purely just a standalone film, and it was just experimental. I mean, the only things that connect really the feature to the short is the name, and it's Gary and the drugs, which is quite a bit considering that's what the short is about. But at the same time, yeah, we never planned it. So from the success of the short, it was very much, we had all those official selections around the world. We picked up quite a few awards, and we started getting all this random fan art from like around the world. And when that happened, like, I knew it was onto something, but still there was no idea to make a feature. And what actually happened, where I was within my career at the time, and for the past 6 or 7 years, constantly wanting to make a feature, and I've got all these scripts that I wrote, and it was just the thing where I was at the time, like, to cut a long story short, it was just like I went through a really hard time. Had something wrong with my kidney, and I got sepsis and nearly died. I went through a breakup. My cat had cancer, and there was just all this shit. And then I went into depression. So it was like this whole long thing, and I just hit rock bottom, and I just got to that point where I was like, what is at the top of my list in life that I wanted to do? And it was to make a feature. And at the time, I only knew James for about a month and a half, and we shot like 2 experimentals together. And I literally got this idea, and it had to be, I thought about, if I made this into a feature, how would it go? How would it work? And because our lead is not a trained actor, it had to be the right character, the right story, and I had to build it around Gary Green to make it work. Otherwise, it would just fall dead. And I literally rang James and I said, listen, I've got this idea. And I literally wrote a 50% scene breakdown, very brief breakdown that was just like, this happens, Barry goes there, Barry does this. And I wrote 6 pieces of dialogue for like 6 actors for the main dialogue in the movie. And I rang James up and I said, James, I want to make a feature film and I want to make it next month. And James's first thing was like, well, have you got a script? And I was like, well, no, because I have to do it in a certain way for it to work. And again, where I was at the time, I needed to do something super creative, which Fry Barry allowed me to do. I mean, I probably could have picked any of these other scripts, would have been way easier to make, but it just felt right, and I knew the idea, you know, was great, was the right idea to do. And then James said, you know, why do you want to shoot it next month? And I was like, well, if we don't shoot it next month, it's never going to happen. So, you know, it's just going to get pushed back and prolonged. And I was like, dude, you either in or out? And he's like, I'm in, let's do it. And then, and that was it. And it just came together, and we just built it as we went.
Yeah, there's a lot to be. Yeah, no, you go.
Oh, I just want to say that Ryan's cat is fine, by the way. He's in remission now. He's fully healthy.
He is.
Everything's good now. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for kind of just seizing upon energy that kind of already exists and just going for it, because it is super easy for projects just to get kind of stuck in development. And
that's what I think is funny, though. You hear, there's so many different routes to make a feature film, and you hear some people, we had this idea for like 10 years and we've been trying to get money, and then it was just when it comes to our story, it was just like, hey, James, you want to make a movie? Cool, let's shoot it next month. And it was just it just developed, and it just worked. I mean, we shot over a year and a half, 28 days, and it was like plan, shoot.
I will just say to anyone watching, if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat window, and we will get to them. You spoke a bit about Gary Green then, and he's very interesting presence on screen. He's super intense. It's a very committed performance. Well. I'm sure. So how did you get him involved, and what were your kind of we spoke a bit before, and he's not an actor professionally. So what were your conversations about the character, and how did you direct him in the film?
Yeah. So there was only one way to make this film, and as I said, because Gary wasn't a trained actor, and I wanted, I wrote those pieces of dialogue for the other actors, and everything was like improv, and all the actors were improv, and we workshopped it. So it was still, even though there was no script apart from the dialogue and the brief scene breakdown, there was still a hell of a lot of planning. And me and James sat there and we're like, what else could happen, and what could bring this and bring that. But yeah, going back to your question, with the thing is with Gary, it just had to be right. And because he wasn't a trained actor, and everybody else in the movie was improv, I just said to Gary, you have to 100% listen to me and only do what I say. Don't do anything else apart from what I say. And I had to work very close with that, doing that with Gary. And it was like he didn't know what we were doing every day. He didn't know what we were doing until I told him what we were doing. So I needed to work in that organic way, and I needed to have that, clean slate and that fresh page every day, because he would overthink it, and he would overthink it. So, I mean, Gary's the only one that didn't really like improv, and throughout the film, and I just had to work with him closely. I mean, there was like so many shots in the film where I'm like, okay, Gary, copy me, do this face, do that face. Okay, copy me, do this face, and then I would get these different, faces and reactions. So I've got more in the edits, to use. But Gary gave 120%. He knew that this was his shot, and he always wanted to do another take. I mean, he was 100% committed. I mean, the guy went naked for like so many scenes and everything like that. And it was just a trooper. He loved it. I could see he loved it, and it's so good because of his background as an extra. And now he's acting with all these other well-known South African names and stuff like this. And it must have been quite intimidating. But on the first day, I said to him, Gary, you're not here by mistake. You're here for a reason. And if you listen to me, everybody's going to love you. I promise. Everybody's going to love you, and you're going to do great. And you're meant to be here. And this movie is made for you. Nobody can do this job better than you. You are made for this role. Even if I got the best South African biggest actor in the country, it wouldn't be the same. It's like he is Fry Barry, and he's got such presence and his look, and I love characters, and he was just obviously 100% perfect for the role.
The funny thing about Gary is that he is this kind of notorious extra in South Africa. I mean, even before I met Ryan, I knew about Gary Green. You know, he's that extra who like just sticks out like a sore thumb, and you know, he's like walking through the back of the shot, and you're just like, who is that guy? I could tell you a lot of stories about that I've heard about Gary, but the amazing thing now is that he is honestly one of the biggest up and coming actors to come out of South Africa this year. I mean, he got nominated for a Rapid Line Award for Best Lead Actor. He won Best Lead Actor at Fantasia. And it's just this incredible underdog story. And it's something
we're
that
so proud of him. Yeah.
It's something that the extras are going to be talking about for years.
Yeah. All the extras are going to be like, maybe I can be the next Fryback. Maybe somebody will notice me. But the funny, like what James said now, the funny thing is, and I've seen it, and loads of people have those stories of, you know, it's like two people are talking there, and then Gary's sitting in the background. You know, he's meant to be just like drinking his drink, but instead of just sipping on his drink and being the fish, he's like, and he's doing all these reactions. And the director or the AD's like, "Who the fuck is that? What the fuck is this guy doing? Let's swap him out. Let's swap him out." And the sad thing is that he just wants to be seen. He just wants to be noticed. And I'm so happy that I saw something in him like a long time ago, and I'm so happy that, you know, he did this film, and he deserves it. This is his break, and this is his shot. And I, you know, and I think he knew that, and that's why he gave it him, you know, his all. And it was so nice. I mean, me and James was at a CineQuest in the States, and you know, at that time, Rapid Line in South Africa was happening, and so we didn't go, you know, obviously to the premiere in South Africa. And yeah, Shane, we really want, we were rooting for him so much to win Best Actor. But as James said, it's that story of this extra that, you know, that rised above, and you know, he ended up getting, you know, a lead in a film, and it's such a great story. And I think sometimes he hates the fact that, you know, people have called him an extra. And I said, Gary, that's what you were. You're an extra. Don't be ashamed of it. I said, you've got a great story. You've got a great story. You know, you've come from there, and you've rised, and you know, you're a lead in a film. I said, you've got a great story. Don't change it. I said, you've got an amazing story.
Yeah, and you can see his kind of his wild commitment, and like on screen, and it's you can sort of feel that kind of underdog energy in the film. And he's acting against an enormous cast. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like you're like, you know, there's so many little memorable cameo characters. How did you keep all of that stuff together? And like, it must have been a logistical nightmare. Kind of
it was
keeping it. Yeah,
absolutely was.
But yeah, I think the cast. I mean, we had so many cast members, but it was sorry. Just go back to Gary. The cool thing was, when Gary's normally on set, he's always going to like the famous actor. Oh, can I get a picture? And it was so funny that we had all these actors, and everybody was going, "Oh, can I get a picture of Barry? Can I get a picture of Barry?" He was so taken back. He was loving it. He was loving it.
We've got an audience question from John, who says, I thought it was the right way to go, but do you think you would use the same semi-improvisational approach again?
Well, for this film, it was the right way to do it. It was definitely, because of the non-actor as the lead, it was the right way to go. But it also, I mean, you can't normally make films like this. I mean, you got the heads of the studios, and you know, it has to do this, it has to do that. So what it gave me was freedom to be like, you know, the only person I had to answer to, and James had to answer to, was each other. So we're like, hey James, what do you think of this? Let's do this. And it was cool just that we didn't have to go through somebody else. If we wanted to do something, we were making the films for ourselves. We were like, oh, this is funny, let's do this. And it was great to work like that. And normally, you know, in a film, you can only direct it a certain way, or you can only an actor make different choices to make it differently, but the script's set in stone. So to have that, as I said, it was still structured and it was still planned. You know, we still knew kind of what we were doing, but there was no major script apart from the script that I wrote for the dialogue for the actors. So, but it was great to be in that moment and to have those I mean, sometimes we would shoot something and then I'd get an idea and go, you know what, this is better. Let's do that. And the cool thing about me is that I don't waste time overshooting. You know, I think some people like overshoot, like, oh, just in case for the edit. So I shoot for the edit. So you don't need to do like, you know, so many fucking angles and cover the whole scene. You know, it all depends on what it is. But sometimes it's just this, and this is the scene, and this is all we need. And I think it had to be done this way. And as an actor myself, so I started acting before I did directing. So it's nice to be able to be in that world and be in that moment. And when you're making a film, it should be collaborative, and you should be, you know, like I love working with actors, and I myself as an actor, I love working with directors. So to do that and work, it's great. It's priceless. I think the only time it ever happens really in the movies is a lot of like comedies where they do, you know, script A and then script B for a different joke, and then there's that little bit of improv. And I think that's only what we sort of really get in the big business world of films. But at the same time, if I approach somebody with this idea and without a script, nobody would make this movie. There'd be no way. They'd be like, all right, cool, he's got no script, he hasn't got anything, let's give him a chance. They would never do it. So it was the right way to do it. But at the same time, the way Fried Barry was made, with the music, the editing, everything, like everything about it, it was designed in a certain way. I wanted to make like a cult style film. So everything about it is done in a certain way. And I think like the next film that me and James do, it's going to be like a little bit more mature and a bit more cinematic, and it's just different. It's just Fried Barry was designed and built that way for it to come across the way it did, you know?
Yeah, I mean, making a film without a script was like a absolutely wild, crazy ride, and so much fun and so many challenges. I don't know if I would do that way again, but like Ryan says, this is the way that we had to make the movie because you know, Gary Green is the movie, and this is the way that we had to work with him. And also, you know, Ryan comes from a background doing like short films, but also music videos, and I come from a background doing publicity for studios. So we both, in our careers, have had to like supplicate to clients and studios, and if we ever want to make a creative choice, you know, there's a whole level of people that you have to go through before you can actually do that choice. But when we were doing Fried Barry, we'd be shooting a scene, we'd be suddenly like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then we could just do it. And that's like the super fun thing about the film, is that it just ends up being this really unpredictable, chaotic ride. But it still sort of comes together in that beautiful, you know, emotional hook at the end, at least I think.
Yeah. It really has the energy of somebody who has come up through kind of experimental shorts and music videos. It's got that kind of like, just, I don't know. It's a film very open to chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I also with the idea, I just wanted to, like I said, there could have been so many other scripts that I could have shot instead and be way easier. But it's also that decision where, when I got the idea, I knew that this was the right one. This is the right first feature film to make, and it's impossible for people not to talk about it because of how crazy it is. And that's the thing. I think when you make your first feature, everybody will say it's, you know, obviously everybody's going to be like, oh yeah, it has to be good, but it's a fucking understatement. It has to be the best shit that you've ever done, or there's no point. There's no point in doing it. And I knew I had the right, you know, the right formula and the right way how we wanted to shoot this thing. And the movie is designed to make you feel uncomfortable. The movie is designed for you to go on this journey with Barry, and it's designed for you to go on the journey as Barry. And that's, you know, and I tried my best, you know, for the whole entertainment value of it, and to be 100% unpredictable. Like, you can't go to the toilet or go grab a drink quickly. You like come back and be like, why is he there? You know, and then, you know, it would be that whole thing. So, you know, it's all designed, and a lot of thought, you know, was put into it for the way, you know, the way it flowed and the tone of the movie.
Yeah. The film shot throughout Cape Town. I'm not familiar with Cape Town, but it seems like you had an enormous number of shooting locations. I find it always really interesting how people kind of shoot their own cities. So what were you sort of hoping to illuminate about Cape Town, or what sort of picture were you hoping to paint?
The funny thing about Cape Town is like Cape Town has this huge film service industry. So a lot of the American and the British movies come to shoot here. So Cape Town doesn't often play itself. It's kind of like Vancouver. So
Right.
they dress it up to make it look like New York or like Budapest or like some exotic, beautiful location, and always make it like look really pretty and nice and clean. But
Yeah, and it's the same with the local films.
Yeah, and our approach was just to go in the complete opposite direction, just show off the like dingiest, grimiest, nastiest streets we could possibly find, shooting like underneath highways, shooting in like gross parking lots, shooting in like abandoned buildings, just because it suited the story so well, and it's a side people have never seen of the city on film.
I think James, we've probably fucked up like tourism for Cape Town after this movie. You know, people are gonna go, fuck that. Looks like that. I'm not gonna go.
So maybe it's a plus for some people.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing is that, you know, as James said, we wanted to shoot South Africa and Cape Town in a completely different way that has never been seen before. And I think we definitely achieved that. But it's also, Cape Town is really beautiful for the people that watch it. That's why we live here. And
please come.
But I just think that everywhere you go in the world, there's dodgy places, and you know, there's certain places anywhere in the world, every city, where you don't go at a certain time, and there will always be those dodgy characters. It just happens to be that Barry met them all in like one night, you know.
But I mean, I think that kind of ties in with like how Ryan presents humanity in the whole movie. You know, like the people are horrible, the locations are horrible, the experiences that Barry goes through are horrible, and you know, that's kind of like, you know, I guess it's part of the. I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, Ryan, but I guess it's the message of this alien, you know, seeing humanity, you know, through these inexperienced eyes and seeing it for the first time, and it ends up being a pretty grim picture.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I wanted people to like watch the film, and after they've finished, you know, that you feel like you need to have a shower and just, you know, and just wipe off that grime. And but again, the design of the movie. But I think the cool thing is with what James was saying there, is also with the character. It's, you know, that character development in a sense of, you know, he's this bastard drug addict, and you know, when he becomes the alien, you know, you end up liking him, and you wouldn't think that. I mean, it's like one of those typecast things where you look at Gary's face and you look at Fry Barry and you're like, bad guy, you know, he's definitely a bad guy. And it starts off and the audience hates him, and as it goes on, you end up liking this guy, and you end up reaching for him. And you know, there's a lot of heart in the movie. And again, with his wife, and she's definitely the heart of the movie.
There's also a lot I feel in the film, you know, as wild as it is. It's also kind of a movie about how we treat addiction and mental illness and all of that sort of stuff, which is particularly interesting given that it's sort of from the perspective of an alien learning about humanity. What sort of impression do you think that an alien would actually get from humanity? Like, is this just did they have a particularly bad sort of run in this particular story?
Well, for a start, it just happens to be that when the aliens came, instead of getting this guy that's just a normal dude, the alien ends up picking just the worst guy he could have possibly picked. But that's what makes it fun, and that's what I mean. You take the drugs out of it. I mean, this is the thing with Fry Barry. It's an easy synopsis. It's meant to be simple. It's just made for entertainment. You know, it's just like it's about a drug addict that gets abducted by aliens, spat back out, and we go on this joyride through Cape Town, and it's like this road trip movie. But instead of the car, it's Barry. Barry's the car, and we're just going through, you know, one thing to the next.
Yeah. yeah, it's I really have not seen anything like it. And I
Does it make you want to take drugs after it? Is that what you're saying?
that's the thing, is that like you could also read this film as like, I mean, because the kind of literally what happens on screen is an alien abducts him, but you could also just read it as like this is just a particularly bad drug experience.
Maybe it was all a bad trip. You know, maybe he's still sitting in that sofa chair after he did heroin in like the third scene. You never know.
Which is kind of the I guess the less interesting interpretation. Aliens make everything better.
It was all a dream.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it's what I was going to say now is I forgot what I was going to say now. But yeah, it's just, you know, with all the drug. Oh fuck! I've lost it. I can't remember what I was going to say now. But it was just with all the drug taking. It just happens to be that, you know, he gets Barry. It's a drug addict, and he goes through those, you know, with withdrawal symptoms. And it's really, the movie is an alien tourist on holiday, and he's just picked the wrong body, you know.
Mm. Yeah. The movie's super ambitious in its in like what you actually visually achieved on screen. All the, you know, the VFX, and there's a lot of kind of practical gore and stuff. How did you accomplish all of that? And do you have any like stories out of putting all that together?
Well, for me, it was always like there's a lot of like 80s references in the movie. I mean, there's so many, and that's, you know, I'm an 80s kid, so all my favorite movies is from the 80s and, you know, the 70s. So I mean, there's like, you know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or like Starman, or early 90s Bad Boy Bubby, The Terminator, Aliens, Close Encounters. So there's all these, like, you know, references. But for me as well, I like doing stuff in camera. So like back then, and I think that's where we've lost a lot with films these days, with everything's just like visual effects. So it's great to do as much as you can in camera. I mean, the whole abduction with Gary floating up, we could have easily done that green screen. I was like, no, dude, like, James, we have to get a crane. you know, getting taken up. We need to have that. And just I think
people think there's a lot more VFX in the movie than
I also think so.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that myself now.
I mean, right now, at the top of my head, the spaceship was real. There's the spaceship and the visual effects. There was the jaw. There was the neck stretch. What else, James?
So when he gets abducted off the street and he gets sucked up, like Ryan said, we could have easily shot that in the studio with green screen. It's like a very, very basic VFX effect. But we were like, fuck that. Let's get a fucking 20-ton crane, strap him up in one of those stunt vests, and then just lift him up. You know, he was a good 30 meters up in the sky. And
well, if you remember, the funny thing, James, is I said, Gary said to me and James, so how high am I going to go? I said, you're not going to go that high. And I got to one point, he was so high, it was just like this little dot. It's so fucking high. And I was like, just shake. And he's just like this, just shaking.
But also, I mean, when Barry's in the spaceship and he's getting experimented on by the aliens, and you see him like floating up, and there's like all those particles and stuff moving around him, that's all just a high-speed camera and a trampoline. You know, like nothing fancy. Again, something that we could have done with VFX, but we just like leaning on all of these like cool 80s like camera tricks, and you know, just to kind of keep it with that like 80s like kind of aesthetic that we were going for.
But I'm just thinking now, what I said before, James, is apart from the neck stretch and the jaw and the spaceship, I mean, what? And obviously the needle going into to his thing. But what are the visual effects there is? Because like you said, I do think there's a lot of people that may think there's a lot more visual effects in it, but it really isn't that much. I can't think right at the top of my head right now.
There were when he's in the spaceship and the pipe goes into his rectum. That was VFX.
No, that was real, man. We did that. We did.
We got the PA to do it.
Junior PAs to do that first day on the job. I'll never forget that experience. What, you know?
Yeah. This is filmmaking, guys.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Great. Yeah. What do you think that? I've run out of my questions. I was hoping for more audience questions. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of curious. What, like, how do you think? Because the alien's sort of piloting Barry. Like, what happens if the alien kind of pilots somebody else? Like, is Barry kind of guiding? He's sort of guiding the alien along as well?
No, he's just basically taking a back seat, and that's why, you know,
Right.
it cuts to those like red scenes where he's like banging like on the wall. So he's literally just taking a back seat, and he's probably, you know, viewing all this, but he can't, you know, he can't do anything.
I'd
Yeah,
like to
I
think
guess-
that there were at least some remnants of Barry's personality there. At least his proclivity for chemicals, you know, because I mean, like Bastard Barry is what we call him, is like human Barry. I mean, he obviously has a lot of experience with this sort of stuff. And even though Fried Barry, the alien, does kind of get it thrust upon him, where like that girl in the club just like throws an ecstasy pill in his mouth.
A good time as well. Eh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
He's like, probably
maybe
this is not
everyone
even
would
that
react
bad.
that way. Yeah. But also,
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you're this tourist alien, and you know you come from planet Zog, and you know everyone's just like a floating consciousness and like tentacles or whatever. What are like the most interesting things that you can do when you get to Earth? Probably like do a bunch of drugs and have a lot of sex. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bastard Barry probably really he's probably like, fuck, I haven't got laid this much for like years. And he was like, he just had a bender for like 2-3 days of just like nonstop shit, you know?
He was just pretending the whole time. He didn't actually get abducted.
Yeah,
he was just like, I'm not a bender. Just pretend I'm an alien.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The ultimate high.
But I think Fry Barry it's one of those films, again, the way it was designed and stuff, it's one of those films that you either love it or you hate it. I don't think there's really too much of a in between. Like the lovers will love it and the haters will hate it. And that's good. I mean, that's good. I mean, we all have different tastes in films. You know, it's if you want to go on this ride, you know, you might get halfway through and go, I can't handle this. But it also changes as the film goes along. But it's designed in that sense of, you know, to make the audience, you know, feel a certain way. And I think it's great that even people that don't like it will speak about it. I mean, like when I go to the cinema, I go watch a film with my friend, I'll come out and we speak about the movie. So this is the type of film that you cannot not talk about it after you've seen it. And that's what's great about it. So even the people that don't like it will speak about it. And I mean, there's plenty of movies every single day around the world that get made and get lost, and just it gets lost and nobody sees. We watch and we sit on Netflix and watch something and go, fuck, that was shit. And you turn it halfway through or 10 minutes in, or you watch the whole film and it was terrible, but you don't even mention it to your friend because it's not worth a conversation. So in that sense, the people that will, like I said, that will love it, and the haters will still talk about it. And that's great. I think it's a great way, you know, to look at it, because it's definitely not everybody's cup of tea. That's for sure.
I mean, I think you get something like that when people just get kind of pushed to their creative limits, you know? Like our DOP Gareth Place, you know, he comes from a background doing a lot of commercials. He shoots things like very clean, very neat, like well lit. And this was the first time that him and Ryan had worked together. And that's not how Ryan shoots things or lights things. Ryan was just like, make it fucked up, make it like as dirty as possible. And the first few days it was this kind of push and pull, but then as he got into it, it just established this like really like dirty, like gritty look that we maintained throughout the film. And I mean, that's the same thing with our brilliant colorist, Nick Apostoli. He also comes from a background doing commercials, and also just, you know, keep it clean, keep it neat, keep it bright. But when we sat down in the studio with him, we were just like, yeah, just push it to the absolute limit of what is possible. Like, take everything that you know about color and then just pump it up like 200% and just like go nuts.
And that was like with every department. That was like with every department. You know, with Nick the colorist, you know, I said to him, you know, dude, like, you know, because he's normally dealing with clients and he can't do exactly everything that he wants to do. He has to do what they want. So we also gave him that freedom. You know, I just wanted to pop. I just wanted to be different. I wanted to look different. And that was, and that's why he had so much fun, you know, grading, you know, the whole movie. And it's like what James said now with Gareth. He's normally, you know, everything's polished and clean and nice with the light in. And I was just like, no, I want shadows. I want it to be gritty. I don't want it to look like this. I don't want it to look like that. And, you know, it took him a day or two to adapt. And then he was on a ball and he just nailed it every time. He really, you know, understood, you know, what I wanted. And he's a great DP. And I'm 100% going to work with Gareth on the next movie. But he was amazing. And even Hazer with the music, it's such a big part of the movie. The music is again, it's just, when I wanted to do this film and I wanted to make this like cult style film, with editing and the tone was like so important. You know, it's like if you get Blade Runner, you know, the original Blade Runner movie, and you take out Vangelis, it's not the same movie. You know, it wouldn't be the same movie, and that's why the music was so important for that feel and tone. And Hazer just did an amazing job. We've
got an audience question about that actually. Yes, so the music from Hazer adds another great layer to the movie. The soundscapes he created for it were top notch. Did you have an idea of what you wanted music wise for Fried Barry from the get go?
Yeah, well, you know, me and Hazer, I spoke about about Hans Zimmer, and you know, we just spoke about a few like references, but also just to make it different, and Hazer's got so many like tricks up his sleeve. You know, he works super quick and super fast, and he's amazing. He's not sloppy in the slightest, and he's just one of those people that perfected his craft and art like so much. And yeah, I'm trying to remember now. There was 2 references I gave him. There was stuff like, you know, like Interstellar, or like the second Blade Runner track and stuff like that. And I was just like, I like this feel. I like that. And it was, as we were going along, it was like, for this scene needs to feel like this. And we just, you know, we spoke about references and stuff like that. But again, it was just like, it had to be that right tone. And, you know, I mean, even the end scene, like, you know, when he goes home, it had to be, you know, it had to be such that right tone that, you know, it's sad, and, you know, it still has those comedy little moments in there, but it just, you know, that music at the end, it just, you know, Chanel Diego is amazing, you know, part that she did there at the end with the dialogue, and you know, she's such a great actress, and her tears and her being upset, and, you know, it's the whole goodbye, but also the music just added that layer, and even the lighting. I mean, it's just, you know, it has that, like, you know, it's like that E.T. goodbye, you know, at the end.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Hazer in South Africa is actually like one of our top DJs. I remember when I was like 17, I would like always go out to the clubs and go watch him. And then when I met Ryan was like, "Oh, do you know who's going to do the music on the movie? Hazer." And I was like, "What? Amazing!" But you know, him coming from this background of being this like absolutely killer electro DJ, he does bring that power and, you know, just that kind of performative style to a lot of the music. But then also, like, you know, there's a lot of music from him that, like, you know, you wouldn't expect from him. Like Ryan says, like the emotional hooks, especially near the end of the movie and when they're escaping from the hospital. You know, it's just absolutely beautiful, and the way that he approaches music is just like different to any other composer. You know, I mean, like I couldn't imagine anyone else composing for this movie.
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, like, in the past, you know, sound guys are weird people, some of them, and it's like, I can't talk music. I'm not very good, so I'll sit there with Hazer and go, and make it a sound or a noise and be like, yeah, I know what you mean. And he gets it. And yeah, I've seen in the past and other people that I know, it's always sometimes it's a really hard process of working with a sound guy, but working with Hazer he's such a pleasure to work with him, and such a nice guy and such an understanding. And yeah, he's just I never want to use anybody else. Like Hazer's just like, me and James, we've shot like 8 experimentals that's gonna come out probably next year. And Hazer did all the sound design for he also did the sound design for the short as well. So it's not just music, it's all that sound design. And yeah, I think before I worked with Hazer, it was one of those things where I've got my style and stuff that I want to do, but there's something missing. And it was Hazer, like his sound design and music. It was just one of those things where it just it gels the style come across as, and it literally goes hand in hand, which is amazing, because I've been on a search for that for such a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think
extra in the background there, James.
Yeah, sorry, my cat actually just caught a mole, and luckily, luckily we live out here in the country. It's like the Wild West out here. No, but Hannah's taking care of it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't even think about the mole. Oh, God.
Well,
that's show business, baby.
We've got to wrap up this Q&A, and that's a fabulous place to. But yes, congratulations on the movie. It really, like, every department kind of comes together in this film, and it's a very complete work, and we're very pleased to screen it at Fantasia. So. Oh my God.
Guys, you go.
This is my cue to go. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Fantasia, for premiering the film. Like, honestly, like, even though it's been a virtual experience, it's been our first time going to Fantasia, and it's just been, you guys have absolutely hit the nail on the head. The response from the fans and the press and like everyone has just been so amazing, and just you can feel that level of excitement. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. And me and James, we even said at the beginning, like, it'd be awesome to play at Fantasia. So it's a big dream of ours to play there. Sad that it wasn't a physical festival, but it's like James said, it's been a great experience so far. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for playing the movie, and we really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Aww. That was sweet.
Well, thank you. And that concludes the Q&A. I'm not sure what